Welcome to In Studio from Simply Timeless. I'm Jay Daniels. Thanks so much for stopping by. This week I'm joined by pianist and vocalist Champian Fulton. We recently met after one of her shows at Birdland in New York City. During our interview, we talked about a number of things, from her new album with saxophonist Corey Weeds to the musical influence from her father, Stephen Fulton. But I was very curious to find out how she balances an international tour schedule with her family life at home in New York City. Here's Champian Fulton.
For me, jazz and life are definitely one and the same. I'm very busy with my music, but that's really what I love to do. So I feel happy when I'm doing that. And also when you're playing with such wonderful musicians, it's not quite as physically taxing as it can be when you're not. Lou Donaldson, my friend, whenever I talk to him, if I say, oh gosh, Lou, I'm on the road and I'm tired, he always says, well, your drummer must not be very good. Because if your drummer's good, you shouldn't be tired. But I love to do what I do. And so I'm happy, and I, of course, find time for family and friends and for my other interests. But honestly, my other interests are all music and jazz. The only thing I do that's not music is reading. I like to read, and I do that on the plane while I'm traveling, so it's okay.
Favorite authors?
Well, I really like contemporary authors. I like Ian McEwan. The last one of his I really loved was Nutshell. And I know he has a new book out this week, which I haven't read yet. But I'm a big Ian McEwan fan. Other than that, I read a lot of classics. And right now I'm reading Salman Rushdie.
Now, you move around quite a bit with your touring. And moving, though, is something that it kind of comes naturally for you. You were born in the Midwest in Oklahoma. Still consider yourself a proud Sooner, even though I think you said that you think that they're not going to the national championships this year. Is that true?
Well, we lost to Kansas State this season pretty badly. But after that, actually, they still say we have an 80% chance of making the playoffs. We're still a great team. It was a bad call. I am a big football fan, and I am from Oklahoma. I'm a Sooner. We moved around quite a bit when I was younger. We lived in Texas and Iowa and in New York very briefly before going back to Oklahoma when I was just about to start high school. So I am used to moving, and I do like being on the road. I like traveling. I like the change of scenery. I like seeing new people, playing for new people. I love seeing the world and the different kinds of cuisine, and I find traveling and being on the road to be really natural for me.
Within all the moving that you did with your family, you took a very large leap of faith, and it's not easy, leaving, even though you were fairly transient throughout your childhood. You made a decision at some point that yes, music is the direction that you wanted to go in, and we'll talk about some of your earlier musical influences in a little bit. But when you were about 17 or 18, you decided that you wanted to make New York City your home. What was calling you to this place?
Well, I was living in Oklahoma at the time with my family. I was in high school, and my band and I were working a lot in Oklahoma City and Dallas, really full time. But I wanted to come to New York because it's where all my heroes lived. It's where jazz, not that jazz is from, but there's so much jazz history here. And I felt that there were going to be a lot more opportunities for me to have a bigger career if I moved to New York instead of staying in Oklahoma. I was 17 when I moved here. And I think when you're 17, you're pretty invincible. You think you're pretty invincible. So I had very few doubts at the time. I was just like, I'm going to pack up all my things and move to New York, and I'm going to get gigs, and I'm going to make friends, and it's not going to be any problem. And I think I was very lucky because that is kind of how it went. I won't say there weren't any problems, but I got gigs, and I met people that I felt, who really became good friends. And I felt very comfortable. But I think, again, it's because I was doing what I love, which was playing music. And anywhere I can do that, I feel happy and feel at home.
And just as music is life for you, you mentioned that jazz, life, that's all one and the same for you. I think through your performances, you help give life to others. And you never know what they're bringing with them when they come to these concerts. And you've played some of the top venues, not only in New York, but throughout the world. But were there ever any moments when you were trying to get your footing. Were there ever any, you mentioned that there were those times of struggle, I suppose. Were there ever any moments, though, where you asked yourself, did I make the right decision, or you doubted that you were going in the right direction?
When I was starting out, my father was really good friends with Clark Terry, and so I was really good friends with Clark when I was little. And Clark knew, I talked with him about wanting to be a jazz musician from when I was like 7, 8 years old. And he would talk about the sacrifices you would have to make as a jazz musician. And he would never really elaborate on it. He would just say that they were going to come, and I had to be ready to make sacrifices. And I would, okay, I believed him, but I was just like, yeah, whatever. But as you get older, that's kind of, I think, when you talk about times of doubt or times of struggle, I think is when you are sort of faced with those sacrifices. Like the sacrifice of being on the road all the time and not being home with your family. I missed my mother's, I won't say how old my mother is, but I missed,
I'm sure she appreciates
I missed
that.
one of her big birthdays this year. I was on the road in Australia. And since I've been home, I miss things. My best friend, she lives in Arizona. If I get out to see her once a year, that's kind of an accomplishment. And so there are personal sacrifices that definitely sometimes are not the most fun, or, a struggle and make you doubt, I guess. But really, I so love what I'm doing that I can't imagine, not doing it.
And your parents have been very supportive of what you do. You do come from a musical family. Your dad, Stephen, very talented horn player. In fact, tonight heard him play flugelhorn along with you. And it's not just a father-daughter relationship, but you work as colleagues. And your mother is not involved in music. She works with children here in New York. I think this is an obvious thing to say, but I would assume it was a positive thing, having a father so involved in music. But not only that, to have them support you, to come to your gigs, something that not every child gets to have with their parents. And even more so, they've now moved to the city too.
That's true. I'm very lucky with my family, of course, because I think without a good support system, very difficult to be a jazz musician, and very difficult for a woman to be a jazz musician. So I feel I'm thankful for that situation and for their support and the way it, how many times can I say the word support? No, but just that, that they're there for me, and they do come to the shows. And, when I was little, I think both of them were like, are you sure? Is this really what you want to do? Because I was very good in school, and I love to read. And there was a while I was very interested in history and law, something like that. I applied actually to a few sort of specialized private schools. But I really wanted to be a jazz piano player, and they were like, well, okay, if you're sure. And my mother would always come to the shows. She still does when I play in New York. And it is a good feeling to have my family. I love working with my father, and it's great to be in business with someone that you trust, to tell you, oh no, that's a bad idea, and also to financially be in business with someone that you trust, I think is also a tough thing in this business. So I'm lucky to have that.
This is In Studio from Simply Timeless. We're speaking with the critically acclaimed pianist and vocalist Champian Fulton, and we're talking about family influences here. And if I can ask kind of a tough question, your dad is quite a talented horn player. He's an educator, an arranger, and of course performer. Did you ever feel that you had to measure up in any way, or that you were following in his footsteps?
Well, when I started playing music, it was because I saw him doing it with his friends, and it just looked like so much fun. And I was like, I want to have fun with them and with my father. And just like in the way, I used to love to go fishing with my family, and I thought I'd love to play a gig too. I never felt in any way competitive or that I needed to, or that I was following in his footsteps or overshadowed or anything like that. I always felt very much my own musician. Now that being said, musically, sometimes, yes, I would say we're competitive, or I pretend to be competitive as he is so much better than me. There is no competition. And also, no matter how much I learn and study about this music, the history, the records, he knows everything. And I'll be like, oh, Dad, I found this record. And he'll be like, oh, yeah, I know that record. And he'll know every detail. So he's far ahead of me in the music. But I think that's a wonderful thing to have as a jazz musician. You need, a mentor or someone from another generation to be there for you, because they can understand your role in the world maybe better than you can, being on the younger side.
You have two wonderful mentors, in addition to your dad, who play with you on a regular basis, your bassist and your drummer. Tell us about how you met those two fellows.
So my drummer tonight and most nights is Fukushi Tainaka, and I met Fuku on a jazz cruise when I was 15. He was playing with Lou Donaldson, and Lonnie Smith was on organ then, and Randy Johnston. He played with Lou more than 30 years, and yeah, I mean, he's a wonderful drummer. He's the best. And I was obsessed with that band. When I moved to New York, I would come see the Lou Donaldson band every night that they played, no matter where it was. I saw them here at Birdland maybe 100 times. I saw them at the Vanguard. I would travel by train if they played in Jersey or Connecticut or anything like that. And that was one of my favorite shows. And then on bass tonight is Hide Tanaka. And I met Hide because he's friends with Fuku. They came to New York from Japan around the same time. And back when I was kind of getting some gigs, Fuku hired me a few times, and he introduced me to Hide, and it just was a natural sort of camaraderie. And so we started working together ever since 2004.
And there was a key word that you mentioned during the show. You do not come with written arrangements. You do not come with lead sheets. You simply come.
Yes.
And you say it's a very organic evolution as far as how the song comes together. And it could be different from one performance to the next. Did you have to work at that chemistry with, well, I guess in this case, four of you? Was that something that had to be worked at, or did it just come naturally?
No, it was sort of always naturally there. I mean, I don't like to have music on the bandstand simply because when I go see a show, I don't want them to be reading either. Because I kind of, if they're reading, I find it a little distracting, and I'm thinking, what's so important that it's on the page, I've always really valued memorizing things. And with us, we have a lot of the same musical values, same ideas. We do rehearse. We get together and rehearse. We talk through things. We play through things. And it's a very, I have a lot of ideas, but also the guys have ideas too. And they'll say, oh no, let's do that. Let's do that. And we just sort of follow each other, and it is very organic. And I think it's a unique thing these days in our music, because there's so few working bands, and so few bands that aren't reading every chart. And if you're reading the chart's the same every time. Whereas if we're not reading it, who knows what's going to happen?
And I think of musicians, each of them, whether vocalist or instrumentalist, as having a voice. Now, you're a unique case because you have your voice at the piano, but literally you're a vocalist. So you bring that to the table, as do each of the gents in the band. But you collaborated with quite a talented saxophonist from Canada, a fellow named Corey Weeds, and you recorded your most recent album. It's a live release called Dream a Little. How did you meet Corey, and how did you come to put this particular album together?
Corey and I have been playing together and knowing each other, I think, since 2013 or around 13 or 14. He used to own a jazz club in Vancouver called The Cellar. He called me on the phone, and he said, I heard your new record. I'd like for you to come play my club. I said, great. And then we met, and again, just sort of hit it off, shared the same kind of musical ideas and values, and we just became good friends. We did a couple tours together, and we were on tour earlier this year in February. And playing duo is really, I think, very fun because it's very open, and it leaves a lot more space for the pianist, certainly, to be more orchestral, and it leaves more artistic space to maybe change tempos or change keys or flow in a different way than if it's a full ensemble. And so Corey and I enjoy this setting, and we said, why don't we just make a record? And we recorded a live concert in Vancouver. It was a house concert. And the day before, we were like, well, we didn't really know exactly what tunes we were going to do. So we got there and we asked some of our listeners who were there, who were big fans and familiar with both of our music, which tunes they might like to hear that evening. And that's how we did it. It's how we made the record. Everything's the first take.
That's what they call magic, musical magic. So let me ask you this, and I'm not talking in musical or theoretical terms here, but you mentioned the difference between the ensemble and the duo setting. But as one who not only sings but also plays the piano, when you think of the many things inside, in the heart and also in your head, when you put all those things together, when you perform for an audience, whether it's solo, duo, or with the ensemble, what are the things from inside that you try to bring out in your music?
Well, I think for me, jazz, our music is the thing, as Art Blakey says, that washes away the dust of everyday life. I love that quote. That's what I want my music to do. I want it to make people feel good, feel better, than when they come in. And for me, the way that I try to do that or get to that is to sort of clear myself out of myself and make room for sort of the creator, the creative flow to just flow through me as opposed to something coming from me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that's really what I want to do artistically. When we're on stage, I like to feature. I think it's fun because it's also a show. It should be entertaining, and I think it's, if you have a great drummer like Fuku, to highlight his technical virtuosity, highlight Hide the same way, highlight all the different things that our different instruments can do. The orchestral nature of the piano, playing fast, the block chords. I think there's a lot of different things, different keys, different volumes, different tempos that can entertain and engage the listener, all the while we're sort of having this, hopefully, spiritual cleansing that's happening.
And I think of, you perform to the audience. Mm-hmm. And obviously you want to entertain them, make them feel better. And I was watching tonight, it is you that we hear at the piano, like here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see it on your face, your expressions. You are fully immersed in the musical experience. But are there some times when you get up on that stage and you're not exactly feeling at your best, and you'd rather be at home with a nice, bowl of chocolate ice cream or something, whatever your go-to is. But suppose, have there ever been those times where you have to get up on stage and it is the last thing you want to do? How has the music spoken to you in those moments?
Well, to me, the stage, or the piano, that setting is a really sacred space. So even if I feel, of course, sometimes I'm tired, or I had a bad day, or I would rather be eating ice cream, or pizza really is my favorite thing. But I might feel that way right up until I step on stage. And when I step on stage, I let go of all of my personal things. I'm no longer engaged with my problems of the day. It's like, that's a different person, and that person isn't here. It's just about me and the piano, me and the singing, me and the band, me and the audience when I'm on the stage. And I feel that every time. And then sometimes you have a great gig, and then you step off the stage and you go right back to how you felt before, and you go right back to like, well, I wish I had a pizza. I wish I was in pajamas and not wearing stockings and 4-inch heels. But on the stage, I never feel that way.
So music has been an integral part of your life. Out of all the things you could do, you chose to do music. Mm-hmm. And as you said, it's really, I don't think you ever had a thought to doing much anything else. So, I have one final thought. Why music?
Music is my whole life. It's happiness and togetherness, and that's how I feel all the time when I'm around music I love and when I'm making music I love.
Champian Fulton, our in-studio guest this week from Simply Timeless. Visit her website, Champian, that's champion with an A.net. There you'll find her busy tour schedule, along with links to many of her latest albums. Special thanks to the Birdland Jazz Club for hosting us during the interview. Until next time, I'm Jay Daniels, thanking you for joining us in studio.